Jared had never imagined that sharing an apartment with an alien would be this complicated. Zira, his roommate from the distant Varnan Empire, was unlike anyone he had ever met. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dim light of the room, and her eyes glowed like polished silver. She moved with a grace that was not human, and she often spoke in tones that seemed to hum rather than resonate. For months, she had been fascinated by human life, observing everything with sharp curiosity, our food, our machines, our habits. But emotions, Jared realized, were something she didn't understand at all. It began one quiet evening. Jared was sitting on the couch, scrolling through old photos on his tablet. He smiled at the pictures of his family, the silly moments frozen in time. Zira was nearby, perched on the edge of the small table, her antennae twitching ever so slightly as she watched him. Her voice, soft and hesitant, cut through the room. "What does it mean, to love someone?" she asked. Jared froze. He hadn't expected that question. Not from her. Not ever. She had asked about human technology before, about food or language patterns, but love, that was different. That was deeply human, messy, and complicated. He swallowed hard and looked at her, trying to find the right words. "That's complicated," he said finally. His voice sounded weak even to him. "Then teach me," she said quietly, almost pleading. Her silver eyes searched his face as if she was looking for a hidden truth. Jared laughed nervously, running a hand through his hair. He didn't know if he could teach her. Love wasn't a lesson. It wasn't something you could explain with formulas or steps. It was something you felt, something that sometimes hurt. But when he looked at her, he realized she wasn't just asking because of curiosity. She was earnest, genuine, and maybe, somewhere deep inside, he wanted to try. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll try." From that night onward, things changed. Every day, Zira would sit beside him, asking questions about human life. She wanted to know why people cried, why they smiled, why they sometimes hurt the people they loved without meaning to. Jared began to explain slowly, carefully, giving her examples from his own life. How he had felt when his best friend moved away, how he had once fallen in love and lost, how sometimes just holding someone's hand could mean more than words ever could. Zira listened quietly, taking notes on her small datapad. Her antennae twitched when she was focused, and she often hummed softly. A sound Jared had learned meant she was thinking deeply. She asked questions that were strange but honest. Why? Do humans risk pain for love? Or why do you forgive when someone hurts you? He sometimes struggled to answer. Some things couldn't be explained. They had to be felt. One evening, as the sun set and painted the room in soft orange light, Zira tilted her head and asked again, softer this time, "Have you ever loved someone?" Jared looked away, staring at a photo on his tablet. A girl from his past, smiling in a way that still made his chest ache. "Yeah," he whispered. "Once. It didn't end well." Zira's gaze softened. She hummed, a low, gentle sound. "Then maybe you can teach me what that feels like," she said. Something stirred inside Jared. He realized that this wasn't just about teaching her what love was. It was about sharing something human, something fragile, something that made life both beautiful and terrifying. For the first time, he understood that this alien with her glowing eyes and strange movements wasn't just learning from him. He was learning from her too. About curiosity, about patience, about the courage to ask the hardest questions, even if the answers hurt. And that night, as the stars appeared outside their window, Jared felt a quiet, unfamiliar hope. Maybe, just maybe they could teach each other what it meant to feel, truly feel, what it meant to be human. The days after Zira's question felt different. Jared found himself thinking about her constantly, about the silver gleam of her eyes, the way her antennae twitched when she was curious, the gentle hum she made when she was focused. She wasn't just an alien roommate anymore. She was someone who wanted to understand what humans felt, and somehow that made him feel responsible. He started small. One evening, he brought out his old collection of movies, the ones that made him laugh, cry, or think. He picked a romantic comedy first. Zira watched with intense concentration, her eyes fixed on the screen, mimicking every human expression she could. When a couple shared a shy, awkward kiss, her eyes widened. "Why do they act nervous?" she asked. "Because love makes people vulnerable," Jared said. "It makes them nervous, excited, scared, happy, all at once." She hummed softly, jotting notes in her datapad. "Vulnerability. Humans embrace it willingly?" "Yes," he replied. "We think it's worth it. Feeling love, even if it hurts, makes life meaningful." Over the next few weeks, their evenings became lessons in humanity. He showed her sad dramas, love songs, and old black and white films where people expressed their feelings with nothing but a look. Zira didn't just watch. She absorbed. She asked questions that were both simple and profound. "Why do they cry?" she asked one night during a breakup scene. "Because it hurts," Jared said. "When you lose someone you care about, it feels like part of you is missing." She remained quiet after that, humming and staring at the floor, trying to process what he had said. Her eyes glimmered faintly in the low light, reflecting the emotions she was just beginning to understand. Outside their apartment, Zira observed humans everywhere she could. Couples holding hands in the park, children laughing and clinging to their parents, strangers offering comfort to one another. She would make notes. Humans express connection through touch, words, and presence. Feeling is central to survival. Jared noticed how her curiosity slowly transformed into something deeper. She smiled more often, laughed more easily, and sometimes stayed up late asking him questions that weren't about movies or science, they were about life. One night, she asked the question that would linger in his mind long after she left the room. "Jared, have you ever loved someone?" He paused. The memory came uninvited. The girl who had once made his heart race, the one who had left him, the ache that had never fully gone away. "Yes," he whispered, "I have. But it didn't end well." Her gaze softened, and she hummed that gentle, almost musical sound she made when she was thinking deeply. "Then maybe you can teach me what that feels like," she said. Teaching Zira about love was harder than he expected. She couldn't understand why humans took risks, why they allowed themselves to be hurt, why they forgave mistakes even when it caused more pain. She asked questions every day. Why do humans lie to protect feelings? Or why do you forgive those who break trust? He sometimes didn't know what to say. Love wasn't simple. It wasn't clean or logical. It was chaos wrapped in beauty, pain wrapped in hope. Yet every time she asked, every time she tried to understand, Jared felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Connection. A strange warmth spread through him, subtle yet undeniable, reminding him that humans were built for this. To feel, to hurt, to care, to love. One evening, after hours of quiet discussion about heartbreak and forgiveness, Zira looked at him with her silver eyes gleaming softly. I understand why humans are willing to endure so much for love," she said. Jared smiled softly, feeling a lump in his throat. "It's because when it works, it's worth everything." She nodded, and for the first time he noticed her smile wasn't just an imitation of humans. It was genuine. And in that small, glowing smile, Jared felt a spark of hope. For both of them, something had begun. An exchange of emotions, lessons, and understanding that went far beyond biology or science. They were discovering what it truly meant to connect, to care, to be human. And neither of them would ever be the same again. Jared didn't notice it at first, but something between him and Zira was shifting. She was no longer just a curious alien observing human behavior. She had become a presence he noticed in every corner of the apartment, in every quiet moment. Her questions had grown more personal, more subtle, as if she were trying to understand not just the idea of love, but its effect on him. One afternoon, Jared was cooking dinner, a simple pasta dish, while Zira hovered nearby, watching his hands move with a strange mixture of fascination and confusion. She had tried cooking before, but her alien physiology made it difficult for her to mimic human gestures. "Why do humans stir ingredients this way?" she asked. "Because it mixes flavors together slowly," Jared explained, stirring the pot gently. "It's like patience. You have to be careful or it doesn't work." Zira hummed softly, leaning slightly closer. Jared noticed that the hum wasn't just curiosity. It carried warmth. And that small moment, so ordinary and human, felt strangely intimate. As days turned into weeks, the spark between them grew. Zira would stay up late talking about her observations, asking questions not only about humans in general, but about Jared himself. "Do you remember the first time you felt truly happy?" she asked one night. Jared paused, thinking back to a summer day at the lake with his childhood friends. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, I remember laughing so much it hurt. I remember feeling like everything was right in the world." Zira's antennae twitched. That is what you call joy?" "Yes," he said softly. "And it's one of the reasons humans love. Because when you find someone who makes you feel like that, even for a moment, you hold on." Her eyes, reflecting the soft glow of his desk lamp, lingered on him longer than usual. He felt a strange pull, a connection he couldn't fully explain. She was learning about love from him, yes, but he realized he was learning from her too. She had no fear, no hesitation, no cynicism. She approached feelings with honesty, and somehow that made the emotions more real, more vivid. One evening, they watched an old romantic film together. A scene appeared where the lovers shared a long, quiet gaze. Zira leaned closer, her silver eyes wide. "Do humans always look at each other like that when they care?" "Yes," Jared whispered. The room felt warmer, quieter, as if time itself had slowed. "Sometimes words aren't needed. Just presence is enough." She didn't speak. She just looked at him, and for a fleeting moment, the world outside their apartment ceased to exist. Jared felt the air thicken, his heart beating faster than normal. He realized that teaching her about love had created something neither of them expected. Zira finally turned her gaze away, her voice trembling softly. I understand now, but she didn't fully understand, not yet. Jared knew that. Love was not a concept that could be grasped overnight. It was a journey full of mistakes, confusion, pain, and joy. He also knew something else, something he hadn't admitted even to himself. He was beginning to care for her. Deeply. In a way that went beyond friendship or simple curiosity. And yet, that awareness terrified him. She wasn't human. She was brilliant, complex, and far removed from the world he knew. The feelings that stirred in his chest were unfamiliar, overwhelming, but undeniable. He could feel the spark, the connection, and the fear all at once. Zira hummed again, softly, leaning back in her chair. Her eyes glimmered as she spoke quietly, almost to herself. Perhaps love is not just a human thing. Perhaps it is the connection that changes everything. Jared swallowed hard. He wanted to reach out, to tell her he felt the same. But he didn't. Instead, he just watched her, feeling the warmth spread through his chest, knowing that whatever was beginning between them was fragile, beautiful, and possibly dangerous. For the first time in a long time, he felt alive in a way he hadn't felt in years, and it was because of an alien who wanted to understand what it meant to be human. The festival came quietly, like a soft whisper through the city streets, but it carried with it a chaos that neither Jared nor Zira could ignore. It was a celebration of light and music, a human tradition that drew crowds in waves, glowing lanterns floating above smiling faces. Zira insisted on going. "For research," she said, though her voice carried a spark of excitement Jared had rarely heard before. The night air was crisp as they walked through streets lined with stalls, the scent of sweet treats mixing with the laughter of children. Jared noticed the way Zira's eyes reflected the lights, glimmering silver in the warm glow. She moved closer to him, an instinctive closeness that made his chest tighten in a way he hadn't expected. For the first time, she was not just observing humans, she was experiencing them. At first, it was magical. They tried cotton candy, watched performers juggle fire, and even danced awkwardly in a circle of strangers. Zira laughed, a sound that made Jared smile until he felt his heart squeeze. He had never heard laughter so bright, so innocent yet filled with curiosity. He wanted to freeze the moment, to keep it like this forever. But then, in a small clearing, the magic faltered. One of Jared's old friends, a girl he had loved once and lost, appeared. She smiled warmly at him, hugging him tightly as if no time had passed. Jared returned the hug, the memories rushing back uninvited and sharp. He noticed Zira's posture immediately. Her antennae drooped, her glowing skin dimmed slightly, and she stood frozen like a statue. Later, as they walked home, the tension between them was heavy. Zira remained silent, moving quietly beside him. Jared tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He didn't know what to say to her. Not about his past, not about her reactions, not about the ache that now hung in the air like a storm cloud. Finally, in the apartment, Zira spoke. Her voice was quiet, trembling slightly. "You told me love is connection," she said. "But it seems I am not the one you're connected to." Jared froze. Her words cut deeper than he expected. "It's not like that," he said quickly, trying to explain. "She's just a friend. Nothing more. You have nothing to worry about." But she shook her head, turning toward the window. "Humans confuse me," she whispered. "You say love is truth, yet you hide it behind smiles and gestures. How am I supposed to learn what it really is?" He tried to step closer, to bridge the gap between them, but she remained distant. "Zira, I care about you," he said. "You're the one I've been sharing this with. You're learning, yes, but so am I. Please don't shut me out." Her gaze flickered toward him for a brief second before she looked away. I don't want to learn anymore," she said, her voice almost breaking. And just like that, the spark between them seemed to dim. The apartment felt colder, emptier. Jared sat down, heart pounding, realizing how fragile this connection had been. He had wanted to show her human feelings, to share what love could be, but in doing so, he had accidentally hurt her. Or perhaps he had revealed truths she wasn't ready to face. For the first time, Jared truly understood how complex emotions could be. Love wasn't just joy, laughter, and closeness. It was fear, misunderstanding, and vulnerability. And sometimes, even with the best intentions, it could push people apart. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how he could repair what had been broken. But the more he thought, the heavier the silence in the room became. Zira was asleep, or perhaps just avoiding him, and he felt powerless in a way he hadn't felt in years. He realized something terrifying. Love, even when taught, could not be controlled. It could not be contained. And when missteps were made, even unintentionally, it could break hearts in ways that weren't easy to fix. And yet, despite the hurt, Jared knew one thing. This was not the end. Somehow he would have to find a way to rebuild the fragile bridge between them. Because whatever Zira was learning, whatever he was feeling, neither of them could ignore what was growing between them. The room was silent. The city outside was alive with festival lights fading into the distance. And somewhere deep inside Jared, a quiet hope remained, that mistakes could be forgiven, that connections could be mended, and that even in confusion and pain, love could still find a way. Days passed after the festival, and the apartment felt emptier than ever. Zira barely spoke, moving through the rooms like a shadow. Her silver eyes no longer sparkled with curiosity. Instead, they seemed distant, fixed on thoughts Jared could not reach. The warmth that had once filled the space between them had faded, replaced by quiet tension and the heavy weight of unspoken words. Jared tried. He tried to talk to her, to bridge the silence that had grown between them like an invisible wall. "Zira, are you okay?" he asked softly one afternoon as she stared out the window at the rain-soaked streets below. She didn't answer immediately. Her antennae twitched slightly, but her eyes remained fixed on the gray sky. "I am processing," she said finally, her voice flat. "Processing what I saw. Processing what I felt." He swallowed hard. He knew she was struggling to understand human emotions, but this was different. She wasn't just learning anymore. She was experiencing confusion, jealousy, and doubt. All the things he had tried to teach her suddenly seemed overwhelming, too complex for her to grasp fully. Jared felt a pang of guilt. He had wanted to share love, to teach her what it meant to feel deeply, but he had never imagined it could hurt her. He remembered her words after the festival. I don't want to learn anymore." She had pulled away, shutting herself off, and now it seemed the distance between them might never shrink. Still, he refused to give up. He left small gestures around the apartment, notes, small meals, a mug of tea waiting for her at her desk. Each time she noticed, she looked at him, and for a fleeting second her silver eyes softened. But she would quickly turn away and the warmth would vanish, leaving him longing for the connection they once shared. One evening, Jared found her sitting on the balcony, her legs pulled close to her chest. The city lights reflected in her eyes, but there was no joy there, only quiet sadness. He joined her, careful not to speak immediately, letting the silence stretch between them. "I miss our conversations," he admitted finally, his voice trembling slightly. "I miss your questions. I miss the way you laughed, even at things that weren't funny. I miss us." She looked at him then, a flicker of something human passing across her features. "Do humans always feel pain so deeply when connections break?" she asked. Her voice was almost a whisper. "Yes," Jared said softly, "because it means we care. It means we risk everything for something that can't be guaranteed. Pain is part of love, part of being human." Zira was silent for a long time. Then softly she said, "I think I am beginning to understand. Not everything, but some things." He reached out hesitantly, placing a hand near hers without touching. "Some things are enough to start," he said. "It's not easy. Love never is, but it's worth it. And I don't want to lose what we have, Zira. Not to silence, not to fear, not to distance." For the first time in days, she let a small hum escape. A sound Jared had learned meant she was thinking deeply. Her eyes met his, and for a fleeting moment the distance between them seemed smaller, less impossible. That night, as they sat side by side on the balcony, Jared realized something important. Love wasn't about perfect timing or flawless understanding. It was about trying even when it was hard, even when mistakes had been made. It was about staying connected even when silence threatened to pull them apart. Zira, sitting quietly beside him, didn't say much more. But the soft glow in her eyes, the subtle twitch of her antennae toward him, told Jared everything he needed to know. The spark between them had not died. It had simply dimmed, waiting for patience, honesty, and care to bring it back to life. And Jared knew, deep in his heart, that he would wait. He would wait and he would guide her. He would teach her, not just about love, but about the courage it took to feel it fully, even when it hurt. The night stretched on, calm and silent, but in that quiet, a fragile hope bloomed. Their journey was far from over. The days turned into a quiet rhythm. Jared noticed that Zira was no longer avoiding him completely. She had returned to her usual routines, helping him with small chores, sitting nearby during meals and occasionally humming softly while reading or working. But there was still a distance, subtle yet palpable, that neither of them had crossed. One evening, as the city lights twinkled outside their apartment window, Jared found her sitting on the floor with her datapad. She seemed lost in thought, staring at a blank page as if the right words refused to appear. He knelt beside her, careful not to startle her. "Zira?" he asked softly. She looked up, her silver eyes reflecting the glow of the streetlights. "Jared, do humans ever realize how much they need someone before it is too late?" Her voice trembled slightly and Jared felt a lump form in his throat. "Yes," he said gently. "Sometimes we only realize it when we feel the emptiness of their absence." She remained silent, her gaze drifting back to the city below. Jared understood then. She was beginning to feel the weight of human emotions. She had learned about joy, sadness, curiosity, and laughter, but now she was starting to experience longing, the ache of care, the pull of connection. Days later, Jared noticed small changes in her behavior. She would linger when he spoke, asking deeper questions about human life. "Why do humans risk themselves for love?" she asked one afternoon. "Even when it hurts?" "Because," Jared said quietly, "love is stronger than fear. It's worth the pain. It's worth risking everything to feel it, to share it." Her eyes softened and she hummed in thought. Jared realized that she was starting to understand what he had felt for months, what he had felt for her. She had begun to see that love wasn't just a concept to study. It was an experience, alive and unpredictable, capable of both joy and heartache. One night, Zira approached him as he was reading on the couch. Jared, may I ask you something personal? She said. He looked up, smiling softly. Of course. Have you ever felt that missing someone is more painful than anything else? Her silver eyes searched his, glimmering with uncertainty. He set the book aside and nodded slowly. Yes, he whispered, I have. And sometimes it makes you realize how much that person matters to you. How much they've changed you, even if you didn't notice at first. Zira was quiet for a long moment. Then softly she said, I think I have begun to understand love. Not as a concept, not as an idea, but as something alive, something that grows even when you try to avoid it. Jared's heart pounded. He had waited, hoping that she would reach this point, and now she had. But there was still a fragility in her voice, a fear of admitting it fully. Zira, he said gently, whatever you feel, whatever you are beginning to understand, it's okay. I feel it too. Her eyes widened, and for a brief moment she seemed unsure if she should believe him. Then slowly she stepped closer. You feel the same? Jared nodded, a warm smile breaking across his face. Yes, I've felt it for a while now. And I think we can figure this out together. Tears, or something like tears, glimmered in her silver eyes. She reached out tentatively, touching his hand with a delicate grace that made his heart skip a beat. The connection, fragile yet undeniable, pulsed between them. In that quiet apartment under the glow of the city lights, both of them understood something profound. Love was not easy. It was messy, unpredictable, sometimes frightening, but it was real. And the spark they had nurtured, the curiosity, the questions, the lessons, they had led them to this moment. Zira hummed softly, leaning slightly closer, her touch warm and tentative. I think I understand now. I want to learn. Fully, she said. Jared smiled, squeezing her hand gently. Then we'll learn together, he said. For the first time in weeks, the room felt warm again. Not because of lights or heaters, but because of the connection they shared. A bond born from curiosity, patience, mistakes, and understanding. And in that quiet, unspoken promise, Jared and Zira both realized that their journey had only just begun. The night Zira prepared to leave Earth, the apartment felt emptier than ever. Her research on Varnan Prime had been approved, and she was scheduled to depart in 2 days. Jared watched her move quietly, packing her few belongings, folding clothes with meticulous care. She was calm, almost emotionless, but Jared knew better. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the subtle tremor in her hands, the way her glowing eyes flickered like they were holding back a storm of feelings. Are you ready? He asked softly, stepping closer. Zira paused, looking at him with silver eyes that shimmered faintly in the evening light. I am, she said, though her voice carried a fragile weight. But I will miss much. Jared's chest tightened. He wanted to tell her not to go, to admit everything he felt. But words felt too small, too weak. Instead, he just nodded, helping her carry her bag to the doorway. For a long moment, neither spoke. The city lights outside flickered against the walls of the apartment, mirroring the unspoken emotions between them. Finally, Zira said softly, Jared, will you forget me? He shook his head. Humans don't forget, he whispered. We carry feelings with us, no matter the distance. I will never forget you. She stepped closer, her hand brushing lightly against his. The contact was fleeting, but it carried the weight of 1,000 words. Then perhaps, we are not so far apart, she said. 2 days later, she left. Jared stood by the window, watching her shuttle disappear into the stars, a tiny glimmer against the black sky. The room felt unbearably silent, but he carried something with him. The memory of her questions, her laughter, the way she had tried so hard to understand human emotions, and the way they had grown together. Weeks passed, but the connection between them never faded. Then one evening, as he sat alone, his tablet beeped. An incoming message. It was in Zira's alien format, but he opened it anyway. The screen lit up with a familiar humming sound, and her voice filled the room. Jared, I wanted to tell you that I am teaching others what I learned from you. That love is not weakness. That feeling, even when it hurts, proves that one is alive. I miss our lessons, our talks, our quiet moments. But I carry them with me. Jared smiled through his tears. You finally understood, he whispered to himself. Her voice continued, soft but resolute. You showed me what it means to be human. Even among the stars, I carry that part of you, And every time I teach or learn, I remember, connection matters more than distance. Jared leaned back in his chair, heart swelling. He realized something profound. HFY was not about strength, battles, or dominance. It was about the human heart, its courage and its ability to connect, even across worlds. The stars outside gleamed like tiny fires, reminding him of her presence no matter how far she traveled. He whispered into the quiet room, "Then maybe that's what love really is. Not possession, not control, but connection. Caring even when it hurts, carrying someone with you even when apart." Zira's message ended, leaving a soft glow on the tablet. Jared held it close, closing his eyes. In that quiet moment, he felt her near, closer than ever. The lessons, the laughter, the mistakes, and the questions, they had all led to this. The human heart, he realized, was fearless in its own way. It dared to feel, dared to hurt, and dared to hope. And in doing so, it could touch even the stars. Outside, the night continued, full of quiet life and distant lights. Inside, Jared felt warmth, hope, and connection. He smiled through tears, whispering, "Thank you, Zira, for learning with me, and for teaching me too." For the first time in weeks, he felt whole. And even though she was light years away, their bond, born of patience, curiosity, mistakes, and understanding, was unbreakable. In that quiet, unassuming apartment, Jared understood something every human could claim proudly: to feel, to care, to teach, and to learn. That was the truest power of being human. And somewhere, far above in the stars, Zira carried that truth with her, proving that connection could cross worlds, and that humanity, in all its mess and beauty, was truly something worth teaching.